Hello, in this video I am going to cover credit. It's a pretty simple concept. What I would recommend is that you watch the video on debt. So debt is basically money you borrow and you have to pay back. So it's the amount that you borrowed and you have to pay back, usually with interest. So what is credit? Credit is usually linked with debt, and credit is how much you can borrow. It's not how much you've borrowed so far. That's what the debt part is, and that's how much you owe back. But it's how much you can borrow. So how much you can borrow. So if you have a credit card, for example, if you have a credit, done a really colorful credit card here, and you'll have a bunch of numbers. This will be the long card number, and it will say a name. So let's say Farhan Hussein, which is my name. You'll have like an end date. Say 01. Yes, the start date. Say 0120. Say 0130. The end date's usually not that long, but let's just argument's sake it is. And on the back, if it's in the UK, you'll have some sort of security code as well. That's what you'll use when making payments. So if you pay something on your credit card, you can't just infinitely keep using it, even though you're going to pay the money back, or at least that's the concept. You're going to pay the money back, usually with interest. Most of the time it is. You have an X amount. So if your credit, that's what people will say, if your credit is £5,000, you can't spend £5,001. That will not work. You can only spend £5,000. So what determines your credit, like how much money you can basically borrow? So one of the things is your credit history, and also how well you are at paying back your debt, the money that you borrowed. So if historically you borrowed money and you paid it back at on time with the interest that they want, and they didn't have to chase you up, that'll up your credit. So that's usually the way they determine that. It could be based on your assets, the amount of money you have. So they're like, okay, if you don't have that, we can just like take it out of another account potentially. So that is what sets your credit. But also, if you have a credit card, for example, your credit will not necessarily be set at the maximum. Because I've got a credit card, I personally very rarely use that credit card. I have it just so I can keep my credit score up. I'll cover that in a separate video. I'll keep so I'll make some small payments here and there. I'll pay it off at the end of the month, so it's no biggie. But some people obviously take it to the extreme and start buying cars on it, or buying designer clothes and bags on it, and as a result have to pay that back with interest as well. But what I've done is I've set a limit on my the amount I can borrow. I've told the bank no more than this amount, and that's the same with my overdrafts as well. And you can do that. You can't say to the bank that I want £7,500 if they're only allowing you 5,000, but you could say I only want £500 on my credit, and the amount of credit I can borrow, because maybe you're never going to have to exceed that, and this will prevent you from having to do some crazy expenditure. The other benefit of credit cards, I would say, is some of them provide built-in insurance on certain purchases. This is what I like about mine, is that you can book a flight for an aeroplane, and if for some reason you need to cancel it, you'll get your money back. That you can't do that on a debit card. They don't provide you those sort of benefits. That's one of the ways that the credit card companies lure you in. So if you take advantage of that and you use it to boost up your credit score as well, credit can be a good thing, as can be credit cards. But always be careful. So remember, debt is the amount of money you borrow, and you have to pay it back, usually with interest. And credit is the amount you can borrow. So this is the maximum amount the particular institution will lend you, and it could be an individual as well. So maybe I've got a friend, I want to borrow some money, and he'll have an upper limit. He might lend me £20 easily, he might lend me 50, but he might think above 50 No, I'm not that rich, or I'm not going to go above that. But he might have another friend that he's willing to lend £500 to. He feels maybe closer to that friend, or he trusts that friend more to actually pay them back. So it's between individuals, between financial institutions. So banks could borrow off banks, banks could borrow off the government, individuals could borrow off banks, and companies could borrow off banks as well. So credit, remember, is how much you can borrow. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop in on the Discord group where we discuss everything from crypto to finance to programming and collaboration. There'll be a link in the description. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.